My next guest takes on Paige VanZant at UFC Fight Night 124. It is Jessica Rose Clark joining me here on the program for the very first time. Jessie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's good to talk to you. And of course, you're coming off a pretty big win in your UFC debut, but we'll talk about that in a sec. I wanted to go all the way back to the beginning as far as when you got into combat sports. I know you grew up in Innisfail, Australia. How'd you get involved in combat sports?
I was actually in Townsville, which is a little further south of Innisfail. I'm from Innisfail, but I was in Townsville as an adult. And I was powerlifting and I was training. I saw this girl, she competed in powerlifting, and the newspaper did a big article on her, and my lifts were all better than hers. So I'm like super arrogant and like to be better than people. So I was like, man, I'm gonna compete and I'm gonna bash this girl. And then I had to drop a couple of pounds. So my ex was a kickboxer at the time, and he took me to a kickboxing gym to like get a bit of cardio and lose some weight. And yeah, I never stopped going. I quit powerlifting straight away and just got hooked on kickboxing.
Cool. And when was that moment in your MMA career where you're like, hey, I'm going to actually make a run at this. I'm pretty damn good at it.
Kind of before I even started fighting, to be honest. Like, I knew straight away that it was something that I was going to be really good at, just with how well I was doing in training and how much I loved it straight away. So it was always my intention to make a good career out of it. Even before I had my first MMA fight, like, I'd already sold everything and moved into state looking for new coaches and stuff. So I kind of committed 100% from day one.
Yeah, and I noticed, your first 6 fights were in Australia, and then you fought for Invicta, and then I know now you live and train in Las Vegas at Syndicate, which is a great gym. I know a lot of fighters over there. They talk about, the family atmosphere, how you guys all get along so well. How did that sort of start with you, moving to the States and living there full time?
So my manager, my manager now, Daniel Rubenstein, he was managing me then, but we were just really good friends. And he knew I had to get out of Sydney, and he knew that if I stayed in Australia, I probably wasn't going to be as successful as what I have the potential to be. So he paid for my flight. He goes, hey, come to Vegas. And I came here, met John properly. I already knew John briefly, but like I came and was supposed to be at Syndicate for 3 weeks. And I think my 4th day, I was like, nah, this is where I want to stay, I was supposed to go out to Florida after Syndicate and just, nope, never left. Got hooked, got stuck here, and just, never left. And it's been the best decision I ever made. And I credit that to Danny. Like, I wouldn't be here without Danny.
Yeah, and I know, and that's interesting. I didn't even know you're managed by Danny. I literally talked to one of his fighters this morning, so that's cool.
Really?
Danny Rube, yeah. Actually, Mike Santiago, he fights. He's fighting on this card too, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Syndicate, lots of good things that I've heard there. And then as far as you getting the UFC shot, you find out. I know it was like very last minute. You're fighting Beck Rawlings, and you go out there and you win. You were the underdog. The fight went to a split decision. When you got to the judges' scorecards, how confident were you that you won the fight, or were you worried that the judges might give it to her instead?
Man, I was positive that I won that fight. But my last 2 fights have been split decisions, even though I feel like both of them I won pretty convincingly, So I've also been on the end of a bad split decision. So like when it kind of gets to that stage and you know that 2 people see it one way and one sees it the other, it's never a certainty, no matter how sure you are of winning, But I'm just happy that they saw it for me, even though I feel like should have been a full decision, but whatever.
Yeah, how did you celebrate after that win? Because again, that was a big win for you in your UFC debut.
My whole family was there, so we just went out to dinner, and then I went home. I think I was asleep by like 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Nice.
I was wrecked. It was a big few days,
No, I bet. What was the first cheat meal you had? Because of course, you had to get down to 25 and take this fight. Like what was the first meal that you got to have that you got to enjoy?
What was it?
See, I asked the tough questions.
Yeah, it was sushi, because like Aussie sushi is so different to the sushi they have here in Vegas. And like I'd been craving it since I left Sydney. So we went to one of my favorite sushi places with my best friend and my coaches, and it was amazing. And I ate way too much to the point where I thought I was going to throw up, but it was worth it.
What's the difference between sushi in Australia and in the States?
Just more variety. So like in the States, I'm allergic to seafood. I can have fish, but like shellfish and that I can't have. And in the States, it's super heavy on shellfish. Whereas in Australia, they'll do a lot of different salmon and tuna varieties, and then they'll do a bunch of different chicken ones, a bunch of different beef ones. So like there's a lot of options if you can't have shellfish. Whereas Vegas doesn't have that. Vegas is just all crab pretty much.
And the interesting thing about you winning this fight is they immediately matched you up right after this. It seemed like it was like, a couple days, and you find out you're fighting Paige VanZant. How happy were you? Yeah, I was going to ask, how happy were you to get this fight? Because a lot of fighters wanted to fight Paige, and you got this fight.
I was stoked, but not because a lot of people have wanted it. Like, I didn't know, because I don't really read other people's stuff, so I didn't know the whole backstory with her and Jessica and Shevchenko and whatever. But like after my fight with Beck, my manager Danny was like, "Oh, we'll probably get you on the Vegas card in March. Like, expect a few months off, and then we'll get back into it." And I'm like, "Yeah, cool." And so the next morning, I said to Wood as he was packing his bag to leave, I'm like, "Hey, like, after this Vegas card, I'm gonna call out Paige because I think that promotionally that fight's like the winner, with my personality and her personality, I think everything that surrounds that fight is going to be really incredible." And then like 20 minutes later, Danny comes up to my room and he's like, "Hey, do you want to fight Paige in January?" I went, "Sweet, let's do it. 8 weeks camp this time, let's go."
How do you feel like you match up against her in this fight?
Very well. I don't think she realizes, how big some of the 25ers are. She's not a big 15er, so I don't understand why she's going to flyweight in the first place. But I think it'll be fun. She's very tough and very scrappy. She like throws weird stuff, and I like that. She's super unpredictable, and I feel like that's when I do best. Is when I can just settle into what I'm trying to do. I like unpredictable fighters. I train with a lot of guys here who are unpredictable, so I'm excited. I think it'll be exciting.
You've been a lot more active than she has, especially in the last year and a bit. Do you feel like that's going to affect her in this matchup, not being as active?
I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22. Like, the more active you are, the less chance you get to actually like recover and let your body repair. So you're constantly in that state of camp, whereas she's had a lot of time off. Like, she'll probably be feeling pretty refreshed. But at the same time, like, I'm not injured, so I don't feel like I've fought as many times as I have in the last year. Who knows? She might feel stale. She's young. I think maybe she was 45. She'd have a problem coming back after a layoff, but she's still really young,
Yeah, no, I agree with that. We talked about Syndicate. Who are some of your main training partners that you work with on a regular basis that are helping you get ready for this fight?
A couple of the amateur guys here at Syndicate, and then I actually bring over one of my brown belt coaches from 10th Planet has been coming over and helping me with my fight specific stuff. And then my friend Alexa Connors, who fights at Invicta, she comes out with all my camps as well. So she'll be cornering me for this fight too. But I usually use her as like a pretty stable training partner because I'm trying to convince her to move to Vegas and just be my training partner all the time. But yeah, like I have like 3 or 4 people that I train with consistently. I don't really train with everyone, just like.
Yeah, it's a variety. You want to get different looks, right? Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
How do you see this fight sort of unfolding on January 14th? I mean, it's a great matchup on paper. How do you sort of see it ending?
I think I'm going to finish it in the second. I know that she likes to be really aggressive and have a high work rate, but I also have a really high work rate, as like you can see on all my short notice fights. Like, I'm unfit and I still have a very good work rate, So I got a full camp this time. It'll be a lot different. I just think it's going to be really exciting. Kind of no matter how it goes, it's going to be really exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What have been some of the biggest differences between living in Australia and living in the U.S. that you've noticed, aside from obviously the driving, which, drive on the different side?
Just so like personally for my career, just being able to train full time over here is different. Like at home, I had 3 jobs and was trying to train around that, whereas now I just train full time. Even more so now that I'm in the UFC, like I can afford to not really worry about my bills or anything like that. So it's been a real big game changer for me. The food's different. It's real hard to find healthy food here. Like, there's fast food places on every corner, but there's not many actually healthy food places. But at the same time, like, even the healthy food in Australia is so amazing that I feel like I was a lot chubbier back home because, like, it's real hard to diet when all the food is so good, In Vegas, I don't have a problem dieting because I have a personal chef here who cooks me real good organic food. And, like, that's legitimately the best food I can find anywhere. So, like, the best food I can eat is on my diet anyway.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. What do you like doing on your downtime? I know you talk about, being a full-time fighter and training, so you're in the gym all the time, but are you watching any Netflix? Are you playing any video games? What would I find you doing, outside of training and everything?
If I'm not at the gym, I'm 100% in bed watching Netflix.
So let me ask you this: if I hacked into your Netflix account and I looked under continue watching, what is it going to say?
The Office.
Okay.
That's like, yeah, the American Office.
Okay, I was going to say, yeah, the American version, because I know there's a UK.
Yeah, the American one. No, I don't like the UK one too much. Like, I get it. I like that sense of humor, but I just prefer the American one. But yeah, I think I'm on, so it must be the 15th time that I've watched the whole series now. I just started again the other day.
It's awesome, isn't it? I'm Canadian, so I'm impartial to the American or British version, but I'm not a big Ricky Gervais guy. I don't know what it is. So for me, I like the American one with Jim Halpert and everyone and Dwight and everything. It's I don't know.
Yeah.
Just the characters are very strong in the show. So I'm with you. I like that.
Yeah, and they develop them really well, and then every time I watch it, I'm like, man, I wish I could find my own Jim Halpert, and like you just love everyone on that show.
Is it tough finding love in Vegas?
There's a lot of people here.
Yeah.
I would say it's tough finding love.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it must be difficult too with your schedule, being able to, to date. And then in Vegas you get, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of the people that are in Vegas are usually there on the strip that work on the strip, and they're like, promoters and not exactly long-term boyfriend material there, those types of guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't have a whole lot in common with people in Vegas either. Like, I'm not a big drinker. I don't party. I don't gamble. Like, and if I'm not training, I'm asleep. That's it, So, and my schedule is so set from 6 a.m. in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. Like, there is no leeway there at all. So I think it's more hard for someone to try and fit in with my lifestyle than it is for me to fit into someone else's. But at the same time, like, I made my manager a promise the other day that I would be 100%. Well, he told me I wasn't allowed to get a cat because I wasn't allowed to put my focus on anything but fighting. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I haven't put my focus on relationships or anything like that. The only thing I was going to do that was like away from fighting was get a cat. And after he said that, I'm like, no, you're right. Like, it needs to be 100% about me right now. So I don't even, yeah.
So no cat. That's a bummer. I have a cat. He's awesome. So I don't know.
He said when I get my UFC contract renewed, he will buy me a cat.
There you go. That's a good manager right there, and that sounds like something Danny would say for sure. Well, Jesse, it was great getting a chance to talk to you. I really appreciate you taking the time. Just remind people where they can find you on social media, and if you have any sponsors or shout-outs or anything like that, the floor is yours.
Oh, just Miss Jessie Jess on everything. Follow my YouTube channel. It's Miss Jessie Jess. Instagram, Miss Jessie Jess. Twitter, Miss Jessie Jess. And that's it.